Why, hello everyone, how are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. And yes, we're back. We're doing it again. In case you've been living under a rock, this is a response video to another video that I already made that everybody watched, and a lot of people really didn't like it. There were so many comments of people who were so mad, and every fiber of my being, all that stuff that's in your brain that tells you not to do something because for your own safety and protection, all that stuff, it was all screaming at me. Just move on. Just let it go. Don't mess with it. You dug the hole. You're in the hole. Just stay in the hole. Eventually people forget about it and you can crawl out. But then the other side of my brain was like, fuck that shit. Because if I keep digging this hole just continuously, as long and as hard as I can, eventually I'll hit China. And then once I hit China and I pop out the other side, I'm not in the fucking hole no more. You know, kind of like the Viltrumites did. So that sort of was wildly appropriate. That came full circle. Now, a couple of caveats before we begin. First off, there were a lot of people who were messaging me, asking me if I was okay, because apparently my mother was being gangbanged in the comment section of this video. And to those people I say, yeah, no, I'm fine, it's great. The video's not even really doing poorly, it has a 94% like ratio. That's only 3% less than what I normally get, which is around 97, 98%. The top 5 or 10 most liked comments are all black dudes saying that they don't like that fucking weird top dread hairstyle either. There's a lot of negative comments, sure, but it's really not as bad as people think it is. With this video, just like a lot of my other videos that get hate, the hate is lesser than the love, so it's fine. Now, caveat number 2, there are a lot of negative comments that were basically giving disagreements, but not arguments. They were just saying I was wrong, but weren't telling me why I was wrong. And to those type of messages, there's nothing I can reply to. I can't say anything. So, if I don't get to your comments because you didn't actually give an argument, it is what it is. I'm gonna try and touch on all of the major arguments, and maybe a couple of arguments that were only made by one people that I think are interesting. But the truth is that video has over 500 comments, and I'm not gonna be able to get to all of them. But I'm gonna get to, the main arguments. But I'm wasting up your time. Let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna go through this section by section in the same order that we did in the main video. And the first section is the Viltrumite Empire. What were some of the comments that people thought I got wrong about the Viltrumite Empire? Argument number 1, there are only 50 Viltrumites. So this sort of varied among comments. Some people said there were 37, some people said there were less than 20, but the idea is the same. It doesn't really matter the number. There's way less Viltrumites that exist in the main story than I said there was, where I said there were millions. Now, I was wrong here, but not in the way people were thinking. I said the Viltrumite Empire. I don't consider the 50 Viltrumites that show up in the story to be an empire, because it's not an empire, it's a fucking club. When I said empire, I wrongly assumed that people should know what I'm talking about. At one point, the Viltrumite Empire was a massive empire that spanned across the galaxy. It's not in the actual comic series. I was using that empire. The empire is basically dead by the time the story starts. That's what I was talking about. I absolutely should have clarified what I was talking about. Now, for the people who are saying well, the 50 people, they would lose because there's 50 people. Do I think the outcome of any of these challenges would be different if I did use just the 50 that we see? I think it would change for One Piece. I don't think it would change for anybody else, though. I'll get into it more when I get to the One Piece section, but yeah, I think that that's the only one where it would actually, the number of Viltrumites would actually, matter. Viltrumite argument number 2. The planet that they destroyed that I talked about heavily in the video was unstable. 3 Viltrumites were only capable of doing that when they flew through the planet at a particular part of the planet. It was stated that if they did it wrong, it was going to kill them, and the planet was unstable and falling apart, so it's not a planetary feat. To this I say, I know, I said it wasn't a planetary feat in the video. I didn't say the planet was unstable. That is something that I didn't mention. But what I did say is that the planet was bigger than Earth. It took 3 of them to fly through the planet. It's unclear how strong of a feat this is. We can assume that they maybe be planetary, but they're probably not. I was very iffy on it because it's a very iffy feat. There's a lot of factors around this feat that make it hard to say how powerful it is, right? Because you're right, there's 3 Viltrumites, they fly through the center of the planet at a particular part of the planet, it said it's going to kill them, and the planet's unstable. But on the flip side, they also say the planet is significantly larger than Earth. So, what? Is it 50 times larger than Earth? Is it twice as large as Earth? Is it the size of the sun? We don't know, they don't clarify how big it is. But we just know it's bigger, and it's bigger by a large amount. So it's an unclear feat. I said that in the video, and I'm gonna stick by that here. It's unclear. And that's it for the Viltrumite arguments. Yeah, there weren't really that many. You're gonna notice that this video is very heavily skewed towards the Dragon Ball arguments. That's where everyone had the most issues with, but we'll get there eventually. Next up, we have the Skaar arguments, and argument number one is, why didn't you discuss Beta Ray Bill or Silver Surfer since they are on Skaar? The reason why is because, well, Beta Ray Bill's not on Skaar. He's only in the movie, not in the comics, and I was talking about the comics. So that's why Beta Ray Bill wasn't used. The reason why Silver Surfer wasn't used is because while he's on the planet, he's chained up in a prison as a slave, and he's completely stripped of all of his power cosmic. So he wouldn't make much of a difference if he was even allowed to leave his cell. The only time in Skaar that Silver Surfer is actually like available to do anything is during the Son of Hulk storyline, where he comes back and has a fight with Skaar and shit. Like even in the Planet Hulk storyline where he's released and gets his powers back, he frees a bunch of slaves and then just fucks off the planet. Silver Surfer's there for a very short amount of time. And by the time we're talking about Silver Surfer showing back up on the planet during the Son of Hulk storyline, you also have Hirokala there, who is considerably more powerful than Silver Surfer, and I discussed Hirokala. Skaar argument number two. Hulk is stronger than you said. There weren't a lot, but there were a couple of comments that were saying something along the lines of, I was saying that Hulk was super weak, but he's not super weak because of the shit that happens in World War Hulk. I thought I made this clear. I'm almost positive that I just straight up said that Hulk is significantly weaker on Skaar. When he goes through the portal and lands on Skaar, it is a massive plot point that the portal that brought him there weakened him tremendously. He says it himself, other characters say it, he's slowly regaining his strength as he's on the planet of Skaar. At the beginning of the Planet Hulk storyline, he gets his ass beat by both Kyara, his future wife, and the Red King, who both say that he's too weak to beat them. Later on, at the end of Planet Hulk, Hulk gets into another fight with Kyara, where Kyara says that he's a lot stronger and a lot faster, but they're still matching each other in fighting skill and ability. Even after Hulk becomes king of the planet, he's still weakened because he keeps feeding all of his energy to the spikes so that they don't go on a rampage and kill everybody. At no point in the Planet Hulk storyline is he at full strength until he leaves the planet and goes back to Earth. I said what his absolute strongest feat was on Planet Hulk at his absolute strongest, and that was him holding the two continental plates together. That's it. He's not like a world breaker until he gets back to Earth. Actually, if you want to go even farther with it, when Hulk leaves Skaar to go back to Earth, during that trip, Hiroim actually trains him in Sakarian martial arts. And by the time he gets to Earth, he's like a trained martial artist now, which he wasn't at any point before that. So yeah, in both skill and power in World War Hulk, he's significantly stronger than he ever is on Skaar. Skaar argument number three. The Warbound are just as strong as Savage Hulk. No, they are not. Okay, so the reason why people say this is because at one point during the World War Hulk storyline, you have the Warbound fighting against a big group of superheroes, and one of those heroes, I don't remember who it was, basically say, man, these guys are as strong as Hulk used to be. But in that story, that's shown to not be true. For one, all the heroes they were fighting against were like low tier heroes. It was like Daredevil and shit. There weren't any really massive heavy hitters in that fight. But also we see multiple times in this storyline that they're just not that strong. For instance, in the Planet Hulk storyline, which happens right before World War Hulk, where that line is stated, Korg, who is the strongest of the Warbound, and three of his brothers who should be equivalent strength to him, all fight against Thor together, and not only does one of them get one shot and killed, but all four of them together are not capable of defeating him. They can't even put up a challenge to Thor. Thor fucking wipes them out, and they have to flee the planet. Later on in that same story, Korg and the Warbound are thrown into an arena to fight against Korg's brothers, who are being under mind control by the Red King, and no member of the Warbound are even capable of damaging Korg's brothers, and they have to beg Korg to help them fight against them because Korg is the only one strong enough to actually harm them. He eventually helps them and they do overcome Korg's brothers, but in order to say that Savage Hulk is of equivalent strength to each of the Warbound, you would have to say that Thor can take on 4 fucking Savage Hulks. No, he can't. We know that Savage Hulk is physically stronger than Thor, but Thor has overcome him through the use of skill and magic and other ways. But they're of comparable power to one another. So how can you possibly say that anyone in the Warbound is equivalent to Savage Hulk when the strongest of the Warbound Korg times 4 could not overcome Thor. It just doesn't make any sense. And also, if you jump later on into the story, like after World War Hulk, a lot of the Warbound are fucking dead. Like, Heroim's dead now. He was killed in, I forgot the storyline. It was either by the Horde or the leader. I don't remember which one. I remember the storyline, but I don't remember what it was called. But one of them killed him. Basically, the leader created this dude named Horde, who was like a Hulk that was made up of multiple people, like stitched together. And it took the entire Warbound together to defeat the leader and this guy Horde, both of which who are considerably weaker than Savage Hulks. None of the Warbound combined were equivalent to a significantly weakened version of Hulk that appeared on the planet at the beginning of Planet Hulk. So I don't know how you could possibly say that they were even close to the strength of Savage Hulk at full power, or even low powered. Like, it's just, they're not comparable. Even after Korg and other members of the Warbound become a part of the Hulk family, they are known as the weakest of the Hulk family. Characters like Red Hulk and Red She-Hulk are considerably more powerful than they are. It's not even close. Yes, there's that one statement by that one random hero, but all of the evidence is just, it just way outweighs that one statement. Next up, we got the One Piece arguments. First One Piece argument, armament Haki negates durability as well as damages organs. And I kind of have two separate answers for this. As far as the negating durability part goes, that's not true. That's false. It does not negate durability. I think there's a misunderstanding of what negating is. Like, it's not increasing damage. It's not doing damage to people you normally can't. It's negating. It means the durability doesn't exist. It's not there. If Haki straight up negated durability, every single Haki attack would just go through whatever its target was as if it didn't exist. It'd be like going through air. There are some weapons that straight up negate durability, like Virgil's sword or Raiden's sword from Metal Gear Solid. Those legitimately negate durability unless they have some sort of resistance to it, like demon weapons, for instance, will have resistance to Yamato. But for the most part, they just go right through shit. That's not how Haki works. Now, one thing it does do is it does actually damage organs. My issue with this is, like, let me give you an example, okay? Let's say you have a firecracker go off in your hand, right? That won't kill you. And then you have a firecracker going off inside your body, and that will kill you. That's true. That's the case. Like, you can have something that won't kill you on the outside that does more damage on the inside. The problem is that firecracker still has to hurt you on the outside. Like, it still has to damage your hand or hurt you in some way in order to hurt you on the inside of your body. Because the organs inside your body are made out of the same shit that your skin is. So the Haki that damages organs will only do something to the Viltrumites if those attacks are capable of damaging Viltrumites normally. Now, there is an example of this in the Invincible story. There's a scene where Robot puts a bunch of tiny bombs inside of Mark's body and blows them up and kills him. And that's what people's evidence is for, well, you know, internal attacks should work. I mean, yes, but kind of like the firecracker thing, that would only work inside of Mark's body if it also would damage him somehow on the outside. You would just do more damage because you're hurting internal organs, but you still have to do damage. It's not like the man's skin is made of iron and then his insides are tissue paper. If you chuck a man through a mountain and he has really hard skin and bones, but then all his organs are normal, his organs are going to get turned into fucking mush. This has been shown in a lot of different fictions, like for instance in World War Hulk of all places. There's actually a storyline where Ant-Man tries to kill the Hulk but can't damage him from the outside, so he goes inside of his body and starts blasting with guns and doing all sorts of stuff on the inside of his body, and then he realizes he can't do any damage on the inside either because all his organs are made out of the same shit as skin. Or at least it should be of comparable durability. My point is, it's not the fucking instant victory that you guys are saying it is. Now, having said that, there are characters that I do think have some form of durability negation, or at the very least some hacks that allows them to get around a character's durability. Law is a really good example. He can cut through basically anything. Although it doesn't really do damage, it's still, I feel like you can count it as durability negation. Boa Hancock is another one. I don't think it's durability negation, but it's basically durability negation. When she kicks someone, she turns whatever piece she's kicking into stone, which is then durable enough for her to break through. So even if the Viltrumites are like way too durable for her to kick through, her turning it to stone will make it so that she can kick through it. Blackbeard's another good one. Perhaps he could take away their powers and beat the shit out of them that way, or just suck them in a black hole where they can't escape. That's possible. I actually think one of the big ones that I think is going to make a really big difference is going to be Crocodile, because Crocodile can just straight up touch you with the sand and suck all the water out of your body, and is the bonus side where they can't actually hit him or hurt him in any way. As long as they don't know his water weakness, he should be able to just dehydrate anyone he comes into contact with, and they're not gonna be able to do a whole lot. But yeah, I think that there's One Piece characters that can overcome Viltrumites. I just think the power gap between the strongest Viltrumites and the strongest One Piece characters are a little too big to get over. But if we had 50 Viltrumites, I think it's absolutely doable, which is why I think that the One Piece thing would change if we only used 50 as opposed to the entire Empire. So yeah, I think One Piece would probably go up in the rankings and be like top 2 if we only had 50 solely due to their hacksy kind of abilities. All right, guys, we're here. We did it. We're at the Dragon Ball segment. This is gonna be so exciting. Argument number 1. 10,000 power level is all it takes to blow up a planet. Toriyama himself said so. So for this one, let's just go over this real quick. Y'all can't even seem to agree on where this information comes from. I said just now that y'all said that Toriyama said so. A lot of y'all did. Like half of y'all argue that Toriyama said so. The other half say that it comes from the guidebook. The people who say that it's from the guidebook are correct. It is not from Toriyama. Toriyama infamously never spoke on power levels or who would win in what fight or who could blow up what. He didn't talk about it. And my assumption as to why this is the same reason most authors don't talk about it, like Stan Lee and shit never talked about it, because they like the arguments to keep going on, they like people to debate and have conversations about it, and it keeps interest levels high. So yeah, no, anytime anyone tells you that Toriyama said this could do this in the Dragon Ball universe, they're lying to you. It is widely known that Toriyama very rarely, if ever, actually talked about that kind of stuff. Now, as for the guidebooks, it does say that a power level of 10,000 can destroy the planet. Here's my issue with the guidebooks. They're not canon, and there's no way they could possibly be considered canon, and I don't think anyone who's ever read them could ever think that they're canon because of just how much false shit is in there. For one, Toriyama had absolutely nothing to do with the creation of the guidebooks. I've seen all sorts of arguments from his company published it, no they didn't, to, he advised on it, no he didn't. The guidebooks were published by Shueisha and written by people who never worked on the manga or anime at all and was advised by the editor over Toriyama. Do you know what an editor's job is? It's to tell Toriyama what he has to change in his story. He doesn't actually write the story himself. He just gives Toriyama the okay or the not okay when it comes to releasing shit. That's the guy who gave advice for the guidebook. Someone who wasn't actually involved with the story at all. The guidebooks have so much wrong shit in it. Just to give some examples of other things that are also in the guidebooks, the Kais only live to be 75,000 years old, despite the fact that in the series, we know that some of them are over 5 million years old. Now, I did get an argument from one guy that said that the Kais age to be 75,000, but the Supreme Kais age to be several million. The problem with that argument is that neither the series nor the guidebooks say that. The series doesn't say anything about how old Kais get, but we do know that the Supreme Kais can be several millions of years old. As far as the series goes, Kais and Supreme Kais might age the exact same way, and we wouldn't know. Now, going over to the guidebooks, they say that the lifespan of the Kais is 75,000, and it doesn't differentiate at all between Kais or Supreme Kais, at least not as far as aging is considered. There are sections of the guidebook that actually do talk about Supreme Kais and Kais, and they compare them in different ways, but when it comes to age, they just say across the board they live to be 75,000 years old, which we know isn't true if you read the manga, because we know there are Supreme Kais that live to be several million. Gohan increased in powers after the Cell games, and was considerably stronger at the beginning of the Buu arc. We know that's not true. Gohan defeated Dabura by going into Super Saiyan 2. That never happened. The entire Dragon Ball cosmology is made up of 4 galaxies. That's bullshit. And on and on and on. There's more wrong shit in that book than there is right shit. And honestly, if we take the guidebooks as factual, they actually make the Dragon Ball Z universe weaker, with shit like saying that the whole universe is just 4 galaxies. So for you to go with the guidebooks, you'd have to be very picky and choosy about what you want to determine as truth and what you want to determine as not. But the truth is that Toriyama had nothing to do with it and really didn't think about it all that much when he was making his series. I mean, fuck, it's not even like the guidebooks are wrong about like super niche shit that anybody could be wrong about, Like it's stuff that you wouldn't know if you read the book, but you have to really deep Dragon Ball knowledge to get this shit wrong. No, it's very blatant stuff. Because the people who wrote this book didn't know nearly as much about the series as your average casual viewer. So why are you taking it to fucking heart? Because some of the statements in the book makes your universe stronger, but you're gonna ignore the parts that make it weaker, I bet. The guidebooks are bullshit, guys. It's super obvious. And I guarantee you the people who are standing on this hill prepared to die have not actually read any pieces of it. They're just going off shit they read on the internet that people told them was in those guidebooks. Because if you actually read them, I think you would side with me on this, that they're fucking bullshit. Dragon Ball argument number 2. Vegeta said in the Saiyan Saga, when he was about to use the Gallic gun, that he could blow up a planet, ergo he could blow up a planet. I already touched on this in the video, but like no one made the connection. I talked in the video about how the villains of Dragon Ball constantly say shit and overestimate their own power, and they just say shit that's not true. An example that I used was Frieza saying he's the most powerful character in the universe, but then when you actually watch the series, you realize no, Boo, Beerus, Whis are all existing in the same universe and significantly stronger than him, so he was lying. He was aware of all of their existences as well, so you can't even argue that he just didn't know. But there's way more examples, including one of Vegeta himself, when he claims to be a Super Saiyan in his fight with Frieza, even though we know he's not now. Vegeta constantly fucking says that he can do shit that he can't do. Constantly claims levels of power that he doesn't have. You can't take any statements Vegeta says about his own power as factual, because I could point like 5 or 6 examples where he says some shit that is literally proven to be wrong right afterwards. And you can do this for basically every Dragon Ball villain. They all have inflated egos and just exaggerate their own power levels. Now, someone did argue to me that the Frieza saying he was the most powerful in the universe and then eventually not being the most powerful was a retcon. So at the time he said it, it was true. That's not a retcon. A retcon is when something happens that they then say didn't happen, or something gets undone. If a character just says he's the strongest and is revealed to not be the strongest, that's not a retcon, because what he said is not fucking fact. Like, a retcon would be if Roshi blew up the moon, and then a couple arcs later, they're like, oh yeah, Roshi never blew up the moon, fucking Kid Goku blew up the moon. That's a retcon. You literally changed something that we know happened, and now it didn't happen, something else happened. Just the egotistical Frieza claiming some shit that you end up finding out's not true, not a retcon. I also heard the argument that technically Frieza was telling the truth, because Beerus wasn't in Universe 7, he was in like his realm, and Boo was gone, so he was the most powerful at that point in time. That's also not true. Beerus was absolutely in Universe 7. He was in his realm, which is located between 2 galaxies, but it's still a part of Universe 7. Boo was also in Universe 7. And you could say, well, Beerus was asleep, so he wouldn't have counted. I don't see why a character who's the strongest like goes to sleep and then all of a sudden isn't the strongest anymore. He would still be the strongest. He's just like, he's taking a nap. It's fine. And that argument wouldn't work for a character like Whis, who never went to sleep. So again, it's just no matter which way you look at it, Frieza was lying. Dragon Ball argument number, I don't remember. Vegeta's dad blew up 3 planets. King Vegeta blew up 3 planets. So obviously, if he can blow up 3 planets, Vegeta and all these characters and Namekians can obviously also blow up planets. Not canon. I talked about this in the video. Again, the first person to actually blow up a planet as seen in canon is Frieza. If you want to make that argument where it's like, well, there's anime canon and then there's manga canon. No. First off, that wasn't the case for Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z, the anime, was an adaptation of the manga. It didn't have its own canon. They followed the same story. They didn't skewer off into different canons until Dragon Ball Super came around. So that argument wouldn't work either way. Filler was just considered filler at that point. But even if you wanted to say that at the time there were 2 separate canons, I make it clear at the beginning of the video that I'm talking about comic books and manga. So you're just trying to force in feats that weren't a part of the established rules of the video. No, the first person to ever blow up a planet was Frieza. Next up, Toriyama didn't say power levels don't matter. Well, I mean, no, if you're quoting him, but I wasn't claiming to be quoting him. I was summarizing. What he actually said, like the actual quote, was, don't take power levels so seriously. That's what he said. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not taking the power levels that seriously. All you guys who are taking these power levels and be like, well, you don't understand. Roshi had a power level of fucking this, which, by the way, y'all kept getting wrong, because some of y'all were saying he had a power level of 180, some of y'all were saying he had a power of 400, and like everyone was disagreeing with everybody about what his power level was. So even you motherfuckers don't know. But let's just say he had a power level of fucking 1,000, doesn't matter. You can't turn the power levels into a mathematical fucking equation because Toriyama himself didn't take them seriously, so why are you? Toriyama did not have it in his head which power levels could blow up a planet and which didn't. And if he did have it in his head, because I don't want to pretend like I'm a mind reader, he didn't tell anyone and he didn't write it anywhere. What Toriyama did is he introduced characters, gave them power levels comparative to each other so that we as an audience can know who's stronger than who. And when he introduced new characters, he would give them power levels that were higher than the previous characters so that we knew that those characters were even stronger. It was a way of clarifying, and this is something that he said himself. He introduced them initially as a way of clarifying how different characters were stronger than other characters. But then, very shortly into the series, he regretted doing that, and removed them because he didn't like how it spoiled who would win the fights. So he ended up starting to kind of ignore them, getting rid of them, giving characters massive power boosts in the middle of fights, and by mid-Namek saga, he just completely did away with them and they don't even exist anymore in the series because he found it to be a bad idea to introduce them. I don't get why you guys are so adamant on like going with it and using it when Toriyama himself said don't take them so seriously, and y'all are deciding to do literally the exact opposite and take it way too fucking seriously. No character with a lower power level has ever overcome a character with a higher power level. Bullshit. Vegeta versus Goku in the Saiyan saga had a significantly higher power level. Goku had a power level of over 8,000. Vegeta had a power level of 18,000. Goku went into Kaioken times 4, bringing him up to 32,000. Vegeta went into his Grade 8 form, which brought him up to 180,000. He was considerably more powerful than Goku, Krillin, and Gohan combined, and he was still defeated. Now, if you want to say, well, there were other things and other factors in that fight that made them able to win, they didn't overpower him. I never said they overpowered him. I said they overcame someone. I said people of lower power levels can overcome characters of higher power levels. That's what I said. So if your argument is that they never overpowered them, well, you're not arguing against me because I didn't fucking say that. Piccolo destroying the moon early on in the Dragon Ball series was calculated at planetary. And the reason why they say this is because they vaporized it. There was nothing left over when he destroyed the moon. It was fucking gone. And that is a planetary level feat. Okay, fucking nerds, let's get into this. Key attacks in the Dragon Ball universe destroy matter. That's what they do. You can't calculate them in the same way you would calculate an explosion. They are a spiritual energy. Yes, if you put an explosion on the moon that vaporized the fucking moon, then you would be able to calculate that to planetary. But for Ki, it doesn't work that way. Being able to use a Ki attack to erase the matter of the moon does not mean that you can use that same Ki attack to erase the matter of a planet that is 65 times the size and made out of significantly harder materials. This is what I don't get about Dragon Ball scalers. They claim to be such big fans, like they're fighting for the honor of Toriyama anytime anyone says anything against them, but they don't even look at their own fucking series and like actually take what the story is showing you into account. Anybody who knows how Ki attacks work wouldn't try to calculate how strong a Ki attack is based on a fucking explosion because they're not explosions. They wouldn't try to make a fucking mathematical formula for the fucking power levels because Toriyama straight up said don't take them seriously. So you're going against what Toriyama said. Are you guys even really fans, or y'all just really pissy about your universe not being like, it's like an ego trip. It's like you think I'm disrespecting the show by saying that it's not as strong as it is, when I kind of think that you guys are disrespecting the show by completely throwing out all of the shit that Toriyama wrote in his stories because y'all want to force the numbers to win a fucking argument. You either love this series for what it is, or you're just a fucking troll on the internet who wants your shit to be better than everybody else's shit. You want to argue about Dragon Ball? We can. We can argue all day. We can have a really good time doing it. But don't tell me that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about because I look at the series in a different way than your fucking bullshit forced numbers. You know what? I probably should have waited till the end of the Dragon Ball section to give this little rant. Whatever. Moving on. Namekian Fusion. Okay, so I sort of agree with this that I should have at least brought it up. The reason why I didn't bring it up is because I didn't think it was relevant. The Namekian Fusion at the time that I was placing this event to be, which was before Frieza showed up, it is forbidden and the Namekians don't use it. The only Namekian that does use it is Nail when he's about to fucking die. And none of the Namekians even attempt to use it while Frieza is there slaughtering all of their people. So I don't know why you would assume they would use it. I know they eventually use it in Super, but that's like, what, 15 years later in the timeline? When they're being invaded yet again? Toriyama specifically wrote in the Namek art that that was a forbidden technique so that people wouldn't ask why he didn't do that in his own arc against Frieza. So why would I assume they would completely turn their backs on that rule? Like, it doesn't make sense. But again, I do think that I should have at least brought it up and talked about it. That was my bad. All right, we're there, guys. The final Dragon Ball point. The Namekians wouldn't actually resist the Viltrumites. I feel so stupid for not thinking of this, because I think you're probably right. The fact of the matter is that the Namekians are a peaceful race of people, and I did talk about this in the video. The Viltrumites, when they approach a planet, they don't usually approach swinging. They show up at first and they're very threatening, and they're like, hey, submit to us or we'll kill you all. But what are the odds that the Namekians will fight back if the Viltrumites are showing them a peaceful option? Yeah, you'll be subjugated under the Viltrumites. That's true. But none of your people will be killed, and in the long run, everything will be mostly all right. While the Viltrumites are super violent psychopaths, they don't normally just go around slaughtering people unless they're given reason to. They're not like Frieza. If the Namekians welcome them, like, yeah, sure, we'll go under you, whatever, it's fine, just, like, please leave our people alone, I think that's probably more likely than an all-out war starting. Now, would all of the Namekians agree to that? Will there be characters like Nail, who's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that, I'm a warrior, bitch? Maybe that might happen, but I think even Nail might see that if starting that kind of fight will cause his people to be killed, I think he might be a sensible enough person to be like, no, I'm not gonna be selfish and start a fight with these people and get a bunch of our people. Even if I think I won't die, it'll get other people killed. Nail's a pretty cool dude. So yeah, no, I actually think that's probably the most likely. So I might give them the benefit of the doubt and say they would probably survive if that's something that they were willing to do. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Okay, so the climax of the video is over. Last up, we have Top Cow and the Top Cow arguments. There really weren't that many Top Cow arguments. One argument that people gave was the JLA crossover. They were saying that the JLA I talked about how Witchblade appeared in Invincible, and she also appeared in JLA, and I didn't really put a whole lot of credit into the Invincible appearance, and I put way too much credit into the JLA appearance. The reason why I did that is because the JLA crossover is actually a Witchblade comic that has storylines that feed right back into Witchblade's story itself. It is a canonical story to the Witchblade universe, whereas the Invincible story isn't. Like, there's no Witchblade comic where he's like, oh, I'm off to go see Invincible, I'll be back in a little bit. That doesn't happen. Like, you really can't read the Witchblade story without reading a lot of the DC crossovers because they feed way too heavily into the story. But having said that, even if I remove the JLA story, I don't even consider it canon, and I just talk about just Witchblade herself, she still fights against the Angelus and even beats her at times. She fights against Jackie Estacado, who erases the universe. She survives an attempt of being erased from existence when the entire universe is erased. And overall, in her solo comics, she just has stuff that's a lot more impressive than anything the Viltrumites have. Let me think, what other arguments do people say? They said that I said that Sarah defeated the Justice League, but actually it was Wonder Woman wearing the Witchblade. That's not actually what I said. I didn't say Sarah beat the Justice League. I said the Witchblade beat the Justice League, and it did. The Witchblade is a living being, and while being attached to Sarah, it mind-fucked the entire Justice League, eventually jumped onto Wonder Woman's body, and then using Wonder Woman, beat the entire Justice League before then Sarah got up and then took it back from Wonder Woman. If I didn't make that clear enough, I hope that is now. Overall, Sarah is the strongest person to have ever used the Witchblade, and she's the only person that can actually dominate it and control it. Clearly, as shown in JLA, Wonder Woman's not actually capable of controlling it or using it properly. And this is reiterated later on when Lex Luthor talks about it. And that was another argument that people gave. I said that Sarah is stronger with the Witchblade than Wonder Woman, and that Lex Luthor says this. Some people corrected me by saying he doesn't actually say she's stronger. He says that it would be easier to take the Witchblade away from Wonder Woman since she has less control over it. That's fair. That's a fair argument. I was wrong there. It's been a while since I read the comic, but I'm gonna take your word for it. I still think that you can argue that Sarah having more control over the weapon could possibly mean that she's stronger. I mean, it's not like Wonder Woman had more powers with the Witchblade than Sarah does. Sarah has more control over it, so it would make sense she could do literally anything that Wonder Woman did, but probably to a better extent since she has that more control. I think it's sort of iffy, but I was still wrong. Lex Luthor did not say stronger. And I think that's all the arguments for Top Cow. So, yeah. But that's going to be all for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?